Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Developing the Leader Within podcast. I'm Enrique, and I am so excited to have Anthony Trucks with me today. I follow him on social media. I'm a lover of what he does and how he presents it. So, Anthony, first of all, thank you for joining me so early in the morning on your side to discuss what I believe is an important issue: leadership and identity shift. And so I just want to give you a little moment to tell us about you, what you're
Yeah.
about, and then we'll get hot and heavy on the topic.
We'll get into it, man. That's a great question. What am I about? I'm a man of God. I'm a husband. I'm a father, and I'm a football coach today. A little bit later, and I am a individual who has a. I hear to tell people I'm a regular guy, but I got an irregular desire to help people, and I work in the realm of identity. So I help people make shift happen, and that shift is an internal thing, but it's really about making something amazing happen outside in any capacity that they choose in life.
Amazing. And I had just spoken to you before the program.
Mm.
Everybody suffers an identity crisis.
Everybody does at some point.
Everybody, right?
Yeah.
And some degree, it may be small, it may be large.
Yeah.
Leadership doesn't really have an identifier and a concrete identifier of what you should be and shouldn't be. Everybody has their 2 cents about what leadership should be.
Yeah. True.
And that's added to your own identity problem, right? So this is an issue that's compounded. And so that's why I want to talk about leadership and identity shift. But before we get into the leadership side, let's talk a little bit about the personal side, because it all starts there. So tell us a little bit about how you get somebody to really identify themselves and get to a point where they can actually say, you know what, I know who I am.
Yeah. There's multiple levels of doing it. It's always a matter of seeing first who you are. It's the got to be the first stage. And for a lot of people, the seeing of who you are is not always the funnest part, but it's necessary. It's kind of like if you want to travel somewhere, do you use GPS when you drive every once in a while? Like I use GPS, right? So when you go somewhere, you need to have the destination, which a lot of people have a dream, but not a clear vision. Like here's I want to be in that city somewhere, but like, no, what address? That's the vision. What address do I want to see when I get there, kind of thing. And then most people, they try to chart a path there, but they struggle, like you're talking about, to find out where they're at. So finding out where you're at is the first piece. And there's usually what I do, I call it a slow or go quiz that allows you to figure out, do you have a slow identity or a go identity? And there are different types. You can actually take a quiz at www.sloworgo.co, and it'll actually direct you through a process to figure it out. But I'll kind of give you the understandings of what they are, and then someone later on can go and find out what they actually are. So the first one is what's called a dreamer. And a dreamer is someone, and this is all just, it's based on what's called a slower go grid. That's based on how you handle opportunity and opposition and where they intersect. So if I tackle opportunity and I tackle opposition, I'm what's called a doer, high end of the spectrum. I go do things. Now, most people think doer, I'm good. No, there are 5 levels to a doer. Each level progresses in kind of just, we'll call it intensity of what you're able to do and how fast you get to your goals. So there are people who are like, yeah, I'm a doer, but you're a slow doer. It's going to take you next 50 years to do what you got to do, right? But then you have the 3 below that. They're what called slow identities. And that's a go one, obviously. The slow one, the first one's called a dreamer. They don't do well with opportunity because it scares them. They're apprehensive. They think too long. Or when opposition rears its head, they shut down. So they don't tackle opposition very well. So they have a lot of big dreams and ideas, but they dream about them all day and it stops there. They never take action. They never chase an opportunity, never tackle opposition. Then you have someone who says, look, you know what? I'm going to go chase opportunity. Every time something comes up, I'm going to tackle it. I got it. So they go after opportunity amazingly. But when opposition shows up, they shut down. It's the first, moment of where something goes wrong. What they do is they go, oh, this hurts. I don't like this. And they tuck away and they go chase the next opportunity. They don't tackle the opposition. They just like, oh, I don't like this. And they run away. So there's what I call dabblers, the dabbling idea, more of the shiny object. I'm dabbling in something. I'll try it out. Moment it's not perfect, I'm going to do something else because I don't like the feeling of that. I just like the rise of how great it is, the opportunity. Then you have the person who they don't mind, taking on opposition, but they don't do well with opportunity. So this is the person who's like the undefeated boxer. I've already had some success, and God forbid I take on something new that will take away from what I've already built. So I will tackle anything that wants to, come into my circle and mess up what I've already built. This is my house. I got this, right? But because of that, I'm apprehensive and I'm slow to take on a new opportunity because I don't want to mess it up. So I'm what's called a defender. I defend what I have, but I don't go after more. So you have a dreamer, dabbler, defender, and those are the slow identities. And a lot of us sit in these spaces without even understanding it or even paying attention to it. But once you're aware of it, you can go, oh man, all right, in order for me to get to the next level, I gotta tackle more opportunities. I gotta go after them proactively and not be so scared of them. Or you know what? I need to stop shutting down when things go bad. I need to find a way to, when things go wrong, to go faster, right? I need to get that mentality. And then the speed at which you go is determined by what kind of doer identity you are.
I tell you, there's a ton of people right now that just with that can identify themselves and say, oh, wow, that is exactly who I am.
Yeah.
And so I love how you put it into a practical perspective, not so much a philosophical type uh, of
All
way of seeing book, textbook type of knowledge, but
mm-hmm.
an actual practical way where you can say, wow, that's exactly what I do.
Yeah.
And so I love that. Now we have folks that are in all types of spectrums of life,
Yeah.
by upbringing, by statuses, by their own knowledge getting, and their
Mm-hmm.
own acquisitions.
Yeah.
So we have all this history piled up behind us,
Mm-hmm.
and it's sometimes too tough to get through all in one shot, right? A lot of people think that this identity shift or identity uh, pinpointing is something that can happen from one day to another. And so, can you talk a little bit about processes, right? And how we can process this, because it won't be from one day to the next.
No, I mean you can be aware in one day. I can take that quiz and I can find out quickly, like, all right, this is who I am. Now, what you do with it and what you accept and own up to doing it, two different things, right? Because just because I'm aware of something doesn't mean I'll actually do it, right? It means I'm aware of it. And the actual transformation that takes place over time. It's a journey to get to that point, and most people they don't have the energy for the journey. So what ends up happening at that position is you have to sit back and go, okay, it's going to take some time, but life is always going to pass. So in that passing time, I can decide, like, I want to stay where I'm at and I don't want to put extra energy in, knowing that in doing that, I don't get anything great out of life. Or I can go, all right, in this passing time, I know what I got to do. Now I got to do it. But the reality is you're not waking up every day like thinking about how far you haven't come, because most people they'll walk the path and all they're worried about is the destination. They are in love with the destination. I want to get here. I want to do this. I can't wait till I have this, and that's great. We all should picture that. That I'm not going to lie. You need to have that as a aspiration, right? But I am a person, and the most successful people I know, they are in love with the day. Like they love the days, and the days that they've chosen to structure for themselves, they lead up to the destinations all the time. So they do the things every day, but they're not they're not waking up going, oh man, I didn't get to my destination. This sucked. They're going, man, I got to make those phone calls, talk to those people, be on podcasts with Enrique. I got to do this. And so when I do this, like I'm in love of the day. And then lo and behold, the destinations arrive. And that's kind of what I look at. Like when most people are, it's like climbing a mountain. All you do is look up at the mountain the whole entire time and never look anywhere around you. Well, you miss all the amazing, plants and trees and wildlife. But if you put your head down and just you walking around going, man, I love every single step. Look at the dirt. I can feel the dirt. I can see the animals. I can see the trees. Look at the bugs there. And oh, look at this mountaintop I'm on now. You arrive at it. And that's how you should live life. And that's how the mentality should be. Because when you do that, it's much easier and life's more fun. And then you want to get back to the journey. You want to get back to the days, even once you've achieved a destination.
I love that, and you're so right. As you're talking, I'm envisioning the leader, right? Because that's where my heart is, the leader,
Mm-hmm.
and it's so true. You're always thinking about that next leadership position. You're
Yeah.
always thinking about that front office, and the proverbial corporate setting. You're always thinking about that exec suite, You're always thinking about, and sometimes you miss the most important things along that journey that will end you there eventually, even if you don't get there as fast as you want to. It is in those daily steps and that daily living
Hmm.
where you realize how good or how bad of a leader are you, and so if you miss those daily steps, or looking at that day and loving the day, you'll get to your destination, but you would have not enjoyed it. And so that is so powerful. And thank you for sharing that, because it truly is where, and I don't like saying magic because I don't believe in it, but it's where the goodness happens in
Mm.
the daily living. Uh, so thank you for that.
Welcome, man.
For leaders that are, and I just kind of like segue into this right here because there's a lot of frustration in not getting to point B in the way that you want. Sometimes it's not meant for that, right?
Hmm.
It's not meant for that speed.
Yep.
You in your process you showed, or you described earlier, you used speed, as a precursor to the action. So
Yeah.
when things are not going as fast as they want, and as fluid as they want, what can they do to understand that it's not always in the speed?
Yeah. I mean, speed's relative, man. It's the kind of thing. It always depends on the person themselves and what they desire and how fast, like what they see as speed, right? And then what's the point of speed? I mean, where are you going? This is like a more, we'll call this philosophical, right? Because we do want to, like, obviously, if you're in a really big place of struggle and strife, we do want to have, we want to get out of there fast as possible. But then I think about the fact, like, if I do something so fast that I miss on like, think about taking a test. If I go ahead and I get the information I'm supposed to have in this test and I just study, I crash study the night before. I just get in my brain and I consume as fast as I can. I go take the test. I might pass the test. But then what happens is I forget it immediately. Or because I rushed, I'm tired or I'm not prepared or I can't remember everything because I rushed, right? But what if you took the entire week leading up to just slowly pay attention, study certain things, understand what it is, make some sense of it, little by little, not super fast, you're still making progress. By the time test day comes, well, you don't have anxiety because you weren't rushing the night before. Got a good night's rest because you weren't staying up till the middle of the night. And when you took the test, you passed the test, probably did better on it, and the information stayed longer. So a lot of us are rushing through life trying to get to the end result to get to this test and pass the test to make the money, to get the girl, to get the job, right? But then what happens? You get there, you're stressed, you're frustrated, and what you did to get there, the information disappears. You lose it quick. You lose the girl, you lose the job, you lose the money. And so for me, it's like if you do things at a rush, man, you're rushing to a point of honestly your own demise. So for me, it's about like how can you get to a point where it feels like it's slow? Because here's why I say speed is relative. The speed at which some people go that feels incredibly fast to them feels slow to me. And it's not that I'm some superhero, but I've learned to go at certain speeds to where I can pick up a pace little by little. I get acclimated to the pace to where I can go fast without it freaking me out, staying up late night. I can do that. So I can learn faster. So what it is, it's actually a muscle you build. You build up the ability to go fast. Because for some people, if you go hang out in their lives, I am positive that if I was to live a day in the life of like The Rock or Kevin Hart, it would break me. Get up at 4 in the morning, do my workout like crazy, go have these meetings. That's a speed I can't handle, right? I promise I wouldn't be able to handle right this moment. But they do it every day in, day out. They built up to it, right? So the thing is twofold. One is you can't rush success because then you lose out on what it means to get that, and you actually lose success faster. And what actually has to happen is to slowly build up to where the speed at which you adapt to becomes something where over time, what is right now super fast to you ends up feeling slow.
Yeah, very powerful statement there. And speed has its purpose. I love how you put it in the perspective of others, because you have to look at what your main purpose is for that speed. So thank you. Um, when leaders get, or when people get to a leadership position they've always desired,
Yeah.
oftentimes they can't even identify with a position when they get there. And
Mm,
it's because they have built up this dream. They've gotten there through whatever means they did, and it's not what they thought it was.
yeah.
And a lot of leaders get to this point somehow. And so you begin to question, why are you even there? Or how did you get there? So there's an identity crisis, both personally, we kind of covered, and now the leadership side, where they just don't feel like they fit that role that they thought would make their life great.
Mm-hmm.
So how would a leader be able to work through an
Yeah.
identity crisis when they
Mm-hmm.
get to the leadership position and
Yep.
can't identify with it?
Gotcha. So it's like, yeah, it's like kind of like the end result. So when you get to that crisis, two things. One is the reason we get there is because we don't actually see where we're going. We I guess is the dream, not the vision. And this is where we go and say, I look up to my boss, I don't know, Mark, and Mark does this, so I'm going to do this. And then you do it for a couple of years and realize that at a certain point you could get to know Mark. And you're like, Mark's life sucks. Mark's not a good husband. Mark's out of shape. Mark doesn't like himself. But I've been doing all the things that Mark does. Wow, it makes sense why I'm out of shape. I don't like myself. My marriage sucks. Like it's what we do is we never go to the beginning and say, let me cast a clear vision out so I know exactly who I'm becoming. At some point, I'll become that person. Let me make sure I'm becoming the person I want to become. Right. So we don't, like Stephen Covey, start with the end in mind. It's not, I think it's more than start with the end in mind. It's start with the end clear. Like, I'm not going to head over to, if you were like, hey, Anthony, come over for dinner, I'm not going to be like, all right, Enrique, where do you live? I'm on the East Coast. All right, I'm on my way. No, I'm gonna be like, no, what's your address? What state do you live in? What's the street? What's the number? I need to know, right? So I think a lot of leaders, they get in and they just start going, but as they're going, they're not actually getting to the point of really anchoring down and saying, where am I clearly going? Right. It's the first piece of it. The second piece is when you get to the point of crisis, some people go, I've been doing this for so long. I don't want to change because that'll mean that everything I've done is for nothing. So I'll have the crisis and then I'll have this internal like struggle because, well, I don't want to have it be for nothing. So how do I make this work? And so we fight to stay here. And it's like, no, the moment you realize you didn't like it was the moment you already knew you didn't need to be there. And now your ego's rearing up and you're going, I got to find a way to make it work. It's like, no, sometimes you just admit like, hey, going back to square one. Because here's the thing. People are so afraid of square one because they think that everything's for a law. There's never a square one because your path to where you ended up, even if it was the wrong place, you still learned tools and skills, have connections. You've done things along the path. So you're never going to square one with no tools. You're going there with a better understanding of how to get to the next place. So you go back to that beginning with a better ability to start. And that's what I think a lot of people don't grasp is I get there and go, oh, I don't like this place, but I'm already here. I guess I got to stay here. No, you don't. You can easily go, you know what? This isn't what I wanted it to be. Let me go ahead and make some shifts and I'm going to go get to the place I want to be, but I'm going to get there faster than it took me to get here.
That's absolutely true. And you're talking, I'm envisioning, you really don't go all the way back down to the bottom of the mountain.
Mm-mm.
Your square one is where you are. You just have to shift. That's where you start now. And then
Mm-hmm.
you go in the new direction. So that was lovely. Thank you for sharing that. Now, you have authored a book, which
Yeah,
I am dying to get my hands on.
me too.
Identity shift, and so,
Oh, it's up there.
tell us a little bit about the book, the inspiration behind it, and your aim, because I want the readers or the listeners to become readers of that
Yeah,
very same book.
me too, man. That'd be ideal. So what I did is, man, I've done a lot of work. I mean, my life and of itself, we didn't even cover most of my life. I've had an interesting one. I've had to navigate a lot of different shifts of who I am and where I fit, from like being given away into foster care, growing up in an all-white family, playing in the NFL, getting divorced, remarrying my ex-wife, having a few kids with her, like all that stuff, man. It's an interesting journey. And I've navigated like who is Anthony the entire time. And I didn't realize that I navigated it much better than most people, but I did it with zero intention. And then when I started like focusing on it and doing it with intention, I was like, oh, well, okay, that is really what the actual thing is I got to work on, right? So when I got clear on it, it all made sense. I was like, that's something that is of value to the world. If I can bring that to the world in a special way, I can actually provide them with something that's very unique and helpful and powerful. And so I just started doing it as like speeches. And then it turned into, well, Anthony, how do you do what you're talking about? And I go, oh, that's a good question. So years ago, I made a process called the shift method. It's not, based on how Anthony feels today. It's based on a very specific set of structured things you do that are based in psychology and neuroscience and just human, knowledge and basic fundamental understanding of how life works, right? That's how it's based. And what you do is you work through it. And that method is what allows people to, for the first time in their lives, sometimes proactively make an intentional shift, like to handle a hard situation with grace and ease and power, or to go to the next level in life with intentionality without just hoping my hard work's going to get there, right? It's a very specific process done properly gets you there without fail. And so I took that and I've been doing it in coaching programs, right? So we've done stuff like masterminds and coaching groups and on stuff. And, some people can't afford, $10,000 to $15,000 our programs cost. So I was like, what if I took it and stripped it down and said, let me give you the full breadth of what this is in a book. Like, what if I take this process and make it accessible to everybody? Because the way it's designed, you actually can do it that way. Just the way our business is set up, it doesn't allow us to just, do it, because there's some intimate aspects that we build. But with the book, there's two parts of it. First half was, I'm going to give you the concepts so you understand the concepts. Because even right now, we're talking through it. But if you read the book, it makes sense. You go, oh, wow, I get it, right? Then the next question is, all right, now that I get it, how do I do it? So it's like, all right, let me put the method in there, the second half. So now people know how to do what I talk about in the book. And that way you get a full rounded aspect. So that's why the book's called, it's called Identity Shift, Upgrade How You Operate to Elevate Your Life. So it's really a matter of understanding like this identity shift thing. If I do it right, I'll upgrade how I operate as a human to elevate all areas of my life.
Very powerful indeed. And I encourage all listeners to get on and find that book. And we're going to provide the link to the book in the comment section, so you'll be able to have that handy. Anthony,
Yes.
I'm so blessed to have shared this moment this morning with you. How can someone that wants to follow you, do that, and even potentially connect with you? How can they do that?
Yeah. If you go to, you can find me on Instagram at Anthony Trucks. And the link to get the book is simple. And actually, I'll do something special for you guys. So the link for the book it's identityshiftbook.com. So identityshiftbook.com as it sounds. And then there's a code I'm going to give you guys, DTLW. If you use that code, what I'll do is I'll give the first 5 people an autographed copy for free, just because I know it's something you're like, hey, do they do that? I was like, I'll make it happen. So I'll give you guys the first 5, but you have to go actually buy the book first on Amazon and then come back to the same website and use this code on identityshiftbook.com, step 3. When you do that code, I'll actually have the first 5 people get a book, but everybody will still get the audio book, the digital book, and a workbook that goes along with it. The workbook's very powerful because it's designed in a way to take the things that are in the book and make them real. It's called increasing cognitive rigor, where most people just go, hey, I read that and I move on. I'm gonna go, no, read that. Now go do this. Now it sinks in and now you get it. And now it's like, oh, great. I've thought through this. I've done the critical thinking, and now you can actually use it in your life without forgetting it.
Outstanding. And thank you so much for allowing the listeners to be part of that special offering. Hey, if I was you, I'd get on that website right now and get you some of that. Anthony, once again, thank you so much for being part of the show, the DTLW family, and for inspiring so many. Because hey, if you're a listener and you have not looked into Anthony's story, it was a Gold Cast, a production, very impactful. After viewing that, I was like, wow, I have not had a rough life whatsoever. And I thought I did. So, Anthony, thank you so much for inspiring not only the listeners of this show, but everybody that comes in contact with you. You're doing that. Kudos to you. I wish you nothing but success. Are there any parting words on identity shift that you would like to leave the listener with before we go?
The parting words. Yeah. At the end of the day, we all are trying to develop, like you said, as leader within and become somebody at a higher level. And what I will tell you is if your identity doesn't match your dream, then the dream will never get realized. So you can have whatever dream you'd like and it sounds great, but the moment that you actually get an identity shifted that matches that dream, that's when that becomes real. Outside of that, it's hard to be the guy that, or girl that makes $1 million if you aren't doing the things that it takes to make $1 million because it's who you are consistently. So that's why when you become that person, those things come to pass.
I totally agree. So, folks, thank you for listening in. Thank you for supporting us. And as we like to close this show, success to you.